I personally have found discussions like this one critical when you need them, totally useless and annoying when you don't. And even when you do need them, a lot of times you don't want to hear them, you don't want to listen to them. So I'm just putting this out there. If you find it useful, great. If you don't find it useful, punch out. All it is a discussion, me talking about how I changed my life by changing the way I thought, by different methods I used when I was having a really hard time mentally and emotionally, and struggling to make better decisions, struggling to get better. So this is kind of the path I took out of that depressed state. And maybe it'll help someone, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll help me in the future. But you know, it's a long, boring monologue by me. But it could be useful to somebody in the right state of mind who needs that extra little bit of a direction, and good examples of how those little changes have had big impacts on my life. So anyway, it's there if you want to listen to it. If not, skip it. Take care. Bye. Hey, it's not Tuesday, but I got my Taco Tuesday shirt on, and I'm here in Kuala Lumpur. It's Christmas time, but I wanted to talk about what got me traveling. It was about this time in 2018, this time of year in 2018, when I got a message saying I had a bunch of points on an airline and they were going to expire, and there was like one last effort to get me to spend all these points I had. That I signed up, I got this huge bonus, and I just totally forgot about it, right? So at the time I was I was a hot mess. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I was a hot mess. I was finally getting out of the apartment. I was going out and doing things, but come the 15th or 20th of every month, I was flat out broke, like looking for change to buy top ramen. I couldn't manage myself. I couldn't manage anything. Couldn't manage my budget. And the idea of traveling was, I had all kinds of anxiety about even going to airports, much less getting on the plane. Just being around that many people seemed unfathomable. Didn't seem possible to me at the time. Much like my problems finding words sometimes or speaking them. It just didn't seem like it would be a probable, thing for me to even attempt, or, to a likely success. So let me take a deep breath here and calm down, and I'll walk you through what I did, how I did it, and specifically focusing on money and how to make better decisions, and how to be more successful in the decisions and attain the goals I want to attain. So I went on that first trip. It was February 2018, and I was just like, I had all these points. I had a couple options. One was I could go to Hawaii, had enough points to go to Hawaii, which was appealing, but at the same time I was like, and I'd been to Hawaii once before, about 6 years before that. And then I slumped into a deep depression, and all these other mental problems followed, right? Depression isn't just depression. It brought with it a whole cascade of, downstream effects. And I was kind of crawling out of that depression when this happened, and this really rocketed me out because I was suddenly being successful at things I didn't think was possible, or probable, or likely. Not so much possible, but probable or likely. So I hit up a couple friends, and so I could either go to Hawaii by myself, or I could take these two guys to Vegas with me. And we went to Vegas. So I booked points, booked the flight on points, I booked the hotel, everything sounded great, let's go. It was a great stay. We had a great time, and I get back in February, and I'm like, okay, well, wow, I got through that. And I had a couple real mental issues, and even when I went back and talked to one of the guys there about it, he was totally unaware I was, having that struggle. He was just, checked out doing his own thing, or too tired to remember, or maybe we were having too good of a time for him to notice, because there was a lot of fun. But what it when I got home, it opened my eyes. Hey, I got there, I survived, I got back, and I had a lot of fun times when I was there. Had a couple funny stories getting there and getting back. I can do this again. I want to do this again. So I'm trying to sort out a weekend trip for 4th of July that year, and I'm looking around. I wanted to go to this one city in California, but hotels were like 250. They used to be about 100 for that hotel, and so it was going to be like 250 for hotels, a night for 2 nights. The whole thing was going to just be outrageously costly, and gas money was insane at the time, and it just was a lot of money. So I'm looking around, looking at other options. What else can I do? Where else can I go? And I find this package deal, flight and hotel, for, I don't know, it's like $100 less, $150 less. I think it was under 400 for 3 nights and the flights from Oakland to Vegas. So I go on that trip to Vegas, totally broke ass, and I'm like, wait, this package deal cost me this much, and I made it, I got home. So what other package deals can I find to go other places? Now, I've been wanting to go to the Philippines for years. It started out, I was exploring the Philippines for dental care, because it was a popular place for a short time for medical tourism. Still is a little bit, but not as much. There are other places, like if you're looking at dental work, I met a lot of people in Albania doing it. I met a lot of people in Istanbul. Istanbul seems to be like a medical tourism hub right now. And then over here, Thailand is and has and always will be, a hot spot for medical tourism. Just depends on which way you want to go. So anyway, I start looking around on the internet and I find a trip to the Philippines, and I'm able to put that together. And the first package deal I think was like $700 it's like $800 for flight, hotel for half the time, and then flight home. And my whole goal was just to go there and get back and see if that works. And so I went there, and I kind of got back, ended up having some problems coming home. I missed a flight, and it's a long story we won't get into. But I got back, and like most other people that went to the Philippines for their first time, they're halfway through their trip. I was halfway through my trip, and I'm planning my next trip. And, that rang true. So I went in October, the end of October. I went again. I can't remember when I went again. But I went like 3 or 4 times the next year, and then I went in 2020, and then obviously we know what happened. But the process to get there, and the change in my budgeting and the change in my lifestyle, is what I wanted to focus on. So that's kind of the background. Now let me lay in the infrastructure, the meat and bones of what helped me get there. And having the goal of I'm going on this trip was key, because I was a guy, I would go to the drive up coffee at least once a day, if not 2 or 3 times a day. And, I had some other activities I was spending a lot of money on. They were illegal. They were, but I don't want to get into it. But I was spending, a lot of money, $300-400 a month on sports type activities that were fun, but, it was a lot of money, and just, being spent. And I'm adding in gas and food and all that other expenses, right? So it wasn't getting me, to the next level. And then food, I would go to the store, I'd buy this horrible food, and I'd, watch TV, I would drink copious amounts of alcohol, all these things. And so I started getting this mindset, hey, if I want to travel more, what else can I do? How do I get my next plane ticket? I was always like, how do I fund that next plane ticket? And so I started breaking down my budget and my monthly budget, and you start going, okay, if I can carve out my cable TV, I don't need to spend that $60 on cable TV. That's 2 more nights in a hotel. So if I cut out cable TV 60 or $80 a month, and I'm getting hotels at 20 or $30 a night, that's 3 more days I can stay for every month I don't watch cable TV. Now, if I do that for 6 months, that funds a whole trip's worth of hotels. And putting things in the binary decision process like that, I didn't know until years later. And if you're curious, I can find the source material. But there's a lot of data that says making a binary decision, this or that, is much easier than making a tapered decision or a decision. Well, if I cut back 20% here, then I can do 10% more there, that type of thing. And so it's most commonly talked about when it comes to dieting, and trying to do portion control over trying to just not eat or eat. So you can have 2 cookies or just no cookies. The no cookies versus 2 cookies, only 2 cookies, is a much easier decision to sustain over time, is what a lot of these really smart people are telling me on the internet. And they claim to have science to back it up, and I don't need to see the science because it makes sense to me. And the same thing I found true with financials. So if I go say, okay, I can have 1 Starbucks a week or 1 a day. I'm saying Starbucks is any generic coffee, right? Or I can have 1 a day or 1 a week or whatever. I cheat. I end up going, if it's 1 a week, I end up going 2 times or 3 times a week, and then it just keeps growing. Where if I just say no altogether, and I attach some sort of negative thought process to that, it really makes life easy. And I took a lesson from politics here. So Hillary Clinton came out and said they're all deplorable. And she used an emotion or she used words to stimulate the emotion of disgust. And by saying people were deplorable, she got everybody to buy into this, nasty mental image of them and generate the emotion of disgust. And I've come to this over a long period of time, microanalyze or obsessively analyzing what I did and how I did it so I can keep doing it more in the future and be better at it. So in my mind, without knowing it at the time, I attached going to Drive Up Coffee or Starbucks or anything like that with a image of disgust. I'm a horrible person for doing that. Not just a horrible person, I'm a weak person, I'm a coward, and things like that. So going to Starbucks, was the same as, kowtowing to, a 5-year-old telling me to get on my knees. It was the same. I put the mental image of disgust in my head every time I thought about going to Starbucks or Drive Up Coffee. And that made the decision-making process so easy. The other thing I did is I associated it with positive thoughts, with things I wanted to do that were in line with my goals. So I'm out at El Nido the first time, and I'm in like, whoa, what is this place? There's that little clip on on Instagram where everybody snags the audio file. It's like, where are we? And then the dude in the voice, this is heaven, And so it's funny. I'm in El Nido and I'm on this boat and I'm looking around and the sky is big, the sea is blue. Like, it is just like mind blowing. The first time you go there, you've never experienced anything like that. The only thing I can associate it to is, coming into Yosemite in the middle of the night, getting up in the morning. We stayed at the lodge there, getting up in the morning, when it's full daylight and walking around just going, where am I? And so I'm in El Nido and having that beyond high experience. We're out at this little island. There is nothing around for miles. And this dude paddles up on a kayak. And he's got a whole bunch of coconuts sitting in front of him. And he's like, "Do you want a coconut, sir?" I'm like, "Oh, the skeptical American tourist, right?" And I'm on a budget, and I'm like, "I don't know, how much?" And he's like, gives me a price. And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." He's like, "Do you want rum?" I'm like, "Well, how much is the rum?" He's 50 pesos. 50 pesos is $1. I'm like, "Sure." Next thing you know, I'm floating around in the middle of the ocean or middle of the sea next to an island, right? But I'm sitting there floating around, sucking on a coconut full of rum out of a bamboo straw for like, I think it was 300 pesos at the time, for $6 or $5, $4, 200 pesos. I don't remember. But it was so cheap. All right, I do remember this. So it had to be in the $3 range, because I remember it was 2 coconuts or a 911 at Dutch Bros. And Dutch Bros is like a drive-through coffee, right? So I'm sitting there every time I went home after that. It's like, do I want a coconut on the beach or do I want half a coffee? No, I want the coconut. And just attaching that visualization made everything so much easier. And in the decision-making process. So the other thing I did is I meticulously went through, like I said, I went through my budget and I associated things to, in a binary way. So, hey, I can get this or I can do that. I can get this or I can do that. And that really focused my daily decision-making process, which is where I was weak. It was the daily decisions. You're walking down the street, "Oh, I'd really like a soda. Oh, I'd like something cold to drink. Oh, I'd like this." To, hey, if I plan a little better, I can do some really fun shit. So instead of going and getting lunch and going to this meeting at the park in the middle of the day, I'd grab 3 boiled eggs out of the fridge and, a piece of fruit or something. And so it changed my thought process all the way back to the store, where I would be buying, instead of snacks like chips or sweet snacks or things like that, or cookies or whatever, I'd buy eggs and boil them, and those were my snacks. I'd buy this, and I'd buy those more healthy because I wanted to get in shape so I could do the fun things once I got there. And I was doing all that, and I was doing great. And then we know what happened in 2020. I also got hurt at the same time, so I couldn't see a doctor for my knee, and I slipped into this huge depression and backslid on everything, including my health. And then my weight just ballooned. But I fought out of it by going back to these same principles, right? Once I got tired of being tired, once I got tired of being depressed, I used all the same principles to fight back. And this time, I won't be backsliding because, 1, I know what to look for, and 2, I'm not going to climb that hill again, right? I climbed that hill. I don't need to go down that hill. I don't need to go into that hole. There's nothing down there I need to see. So, and that's a lesson, you may or may not have to learn the hard way like I did. But getting back to the principles that really changed my life, it was putting things in that binary process, right? Putting things in the, I can do this or this, and thinking about every decision that way. And it was also having goals. If I didn't have a specific goal, if I was saving money for a trip, it didn't work. Like you know what, I can cut back later, I could do this, let me get this meal, let me get this, but if I focused on a very, very specific goal of, hey, if I get this, I can't stay at that hotel, I have to stay at that hotel. If I get this, I can't go to this island. If I get this, I can't do that. And attaching that ownership of those funds here and now to something distant in the future made all the difference in the world, and just skyrocketed my success. So now, when I spend money, it's either planned or I'm making that decision. Hey, I can't do this in the future if I do this now. And that was really a ground breaking thing, making it binary where it's this or that, and not just, oh, I'm saving for this trip, or oh, I need to cut back. No, none of that works for me. Making it binary was really key. And then attaching the emotion of disgust, has to be disgust, can't be, anything. For some reason, when you attach, the emotion of disgust to bad behaviors or behaviors you want to change, it's far more effective. And there's a bunch of like smart science people out there that I've listened to across a broad spectrum that, added to this, to me saying this. So don't think I came up with these ideas. These are things I was doing and then learned what I was doing and why it was effective after the fact. Because I've been spending, copious amounts of time, trying to get better mentally, emotionally, and, trying to be a better, stronger person. Because I'm rubbing elbows with some just amazing people, and I feel so inferior to them a lot of the time simply because, I'm at the base of the hill that they've climbed 1,000 times. And so I'm out there actively, mentally trying to climb those hills and understand the thought processes they use or they employ. And, and they employ them just by second nature. There's a friend of mine that just confuses the hell out of me because his decision-making process, when I talk to him, even about the most casual things, I'm not sure he's even aware I'm like breaking it down this way, but well, he might be now because I've asked him about it directly, but he has a thought process that took me, I read, it's one of the 3 books I really, attribute to changing my life, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. And he just naturally, ever since I've known him, employs a lot of the things that book taught me, and he just does it like instinctively. And so I asked him one day, and I asked his father, it's like, did you guys ever read these books or, anything about this? And no, 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 no. And so it just kind of blows me away that, I don't know how or why, but he doesn't need to read that book because he could write that book. If you were to, spend time thinking about what he does, he could write that book. And in many ways, I'm not saying 100%, but it just kind of, it's interesting to me. So things that he does on a second nature or has done his entire life, it's fluid to him. It's, more natural than speaking English. I struggle with. And I meet so many people where they have those thought processes where it's just natural to them. And I have to stop and think about it. Like you see the chess players, they look at the board and they just make a move. It's because they've done it so many times, they know what the right move is. Where, if you ask me or somebody else at my level, we're going to look at the board and we may get the same move, but it'll take us 20 minutes to get there. And so I've been spending a ton of time, reassessing everything I've done to get where I'm at because I want to go farther. And, that was one of the key things. Those are the key things. Attaching a level of disgust, attaching a goal, and making it a binary decision. Those 3 things, and honestly, this is the first time I've really ever broken it out in numbers like that and, identified those 3, that specifically. But those 3 things have really, really just, enabled me to do so much more in life. And it's not just about applying it to your budget or your diet or your lifestyle or this. It's about applying it across the board, in general. And the one thing that really surprised me was understanding, attaching internally, mentally, like subconsciously or, not subconsciously, but consciously and quietly attaching a level of disgust to certain behaviors or certain decisions, um, and not in a way to be condescending to people that make those, but just in a way to push up my self pride. Hey, I'm not drinking the coffees like I used to, and it's real hard not to get. I can see where I haven't been down this path, but I can see where that could lead to some looking down the nose at people doing those things. But it's like, well, wait a second, I did that shit for 20 years. I can't look down the nose at anybody who's doing it, right? If they ask me how to change, I can offer that, my experience. But or if they ask me, how to do X, I'm like, well, I stopped this, and that allows me to do this, and I cut back on my drinking, and that allows me to get up in the morning, type things, right? When people ask, well, how do you have so much energy? Well, I did this, and that becomes. So, what you do is your choice. I'm just telling you what I've done, and, attaching those three things to my budgeting really took me from being a broke ass brokey to I'm still a broke ass brokey, but I'm in Kuala Lumpur, going back to the Philippines, should be in Bali next month. I'm not sitting in California stewing in all the hatred there and the crime and the trash, and I'm not sitting in front of a TV waiting to die. I'm not drinking myself to death. I'm not eating myself to death, although it's still working on losing the weight. I just checked the scales this morning, and after the last 2 weeks, I thought I'd be up, and I'm down a half kilo. I thought I'd be up 2 or 3 kilos, because boy, the street food here in Malaysia, I gotta tell you, man, I've been eating rice. Like, oh man, the sauces on the rice is so good. And so I expected to have gained a little weight, and fact check myself on the scale there, and evidently, I'm down half a kilo. So that just encourages me to knuckle in harder and get better and cut out those midnight snacks, and cut back the sweet drinks in the morning, the juices. I've been drinking way too many juices at breakfast, things like that. So, and I've been, the fruit. I have been just gorging on fruit here, because you go to all these street markets, and I mean, the fruit is just spectacular. And when you taste a strawberry that isn't GMO, you go, oh, okay, this is great. Because, I remember those big ass strawberries you get out of Watsonville, and they look great, but these little ones that are all, funky, all fugly, ugly fruit, right? Ugly fruit tastes the best. And and the dragon fruit over here is really good. And it's affordable. I can afford to buy it. There's this other, anyway. So that was one of the key principles that allowed me to travel, allowed me to start changing my life, was applying that budget. The other thing was, looking at expenses differently. Do I need a new t-shirt? What prompted this video, I was just talking with somebody, and we were talking about sunglasses, right? So I have a pair of sunglasses. They're decently expensive, Oakley's, and I'm very protective of them. And, I'm trying to learn to live without sunglasses, but for a long time, I was always wearing my sunglasses. Part of that was just habit, part of that was experience. So the price of sunglasses, and I'm using round numbers here for obvious reasons, but they're pretty close to accurate. So if you buy a pair of sunglasses at $240, and you can get them to last 2 years, which is a chore. Getting a pair of sunglasses to last 2 years, I think, is a real challenge. How much is that per month? Well, 240 divided by 2 years, right? How much is that a month? How much is that a day? How much is that a week? And that's just a pair of sunglasses. Now add in a pair of boots for $120, add in a pair of pants for $60, add in, a few shirts at $20 a piece, and you start your daily cost of these innocuous goods just starts climbing and climbing and climbing. So I had a pair of pants, they were $70 and they lasted 1 year. I actually had 3 pairs of pants. Two lasted a year, one lasted, not so long. But I had 2 pairs of pants. Let me get real specific here. Let me fact check my memory. Okay, so I got 2 pairs of pants. They were $70 a piece. Actually, I paid shipping, so they came out to probably about $80 a piece. So $160 for 2 pairs of pants that lasted 18 months. And that was pretty much the only pants I wore in those 18 months. I didn't buy any more. I had another pair that went away quickly after a month or so. They got torn. And then you start adding up shirts and all those things. You start adding all that up and putting that in your budget and breaking that back down to a daily cost. And you go, whoa, wait a second. If I add a pair of pants and a pair of shoes, that takes away my coffee every day. When I was in Portugal, I was in the Azores, I started doing the numbers on buying coffee at the store, making it at home, and it was actually cheaper in the long run for me and easier to go to the store and get an espresso, or go to the little shop and get an espresso, because the coffee was expensive. The coffee I was wanting to drink was expensive. There was actually better quality espresso at the store, but the mid-level coffee was expensive, and I'd have to buy a maker and this and that because I wanted to get away from the instant. And so it was all going to be more expensive than actually going and buying coffee. And that's not necessarily true in America. It's usually the reverse. But if I added a pair of pants, a pair of shoes that were going to be amortized over a year, that would take away my coffee money. And if I take away my coffee money, from there, and I put it to that, I've got to add something back because I'm not going without my coffee, right? And putting things in real terms and amortizing it like that, it's like, hey, I can wear the same shirt. I finally bought a new pair of pants when I was in America a few months ago, and they already look like clown pants, and I'm already getting self-conscious because I had a long conversation with some friends about clothes, and I'm starting to actually care more and more about my appearance. Before it was like, hey, it's clean, I don't care, right? But the more and more I care about my appearance, the more I need to be selective and buy just exactly what I want, and not just pull the 7-Eleven in Japan and go spend money to just try everything, right? And it's hard being a fatty in nations full of tiny, slim people, thin people, to find clothes. So that's something I need to be careful and work on. But that was a long, detailed explanation of bringing that binary decision making process back down to clothes, back down to travel gear, back down to soap, back down to bottle of water here, or refill the bottle there, or get a big bottle or a small bottle. And I brought up a couple examples in other videos, like buying a small bottle in one place here. A 350 milliliter bottle was 450 ringgit. If I went to this other store, I could get a 1 liter bottle for 290 ringgit. Water tastes the same. It's the same, appears to be the same quality. And so making that decision to take those extra steps or the extra planning to go get that bottle doesn't seem like a big savings, but you do that over 10 or 20 or 2 months, it's a huge savings. And I saw that very specifically in Albania. I could go buy a small bottle, or I could get a big bottle and drink more water, because a big bottle I'm going to drink more, but it's also exponentially cheaper in the long run, or not exponentially, but orders of magnitude cheaper in the long run to my budget. So, and if I am going to buy small bottles, I would try and buy them in a case and get the case discount. Yeah, I kind of tangent there. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I just want to recap one more time because I don't think I've said it enough. But adding a level of disgust to bad decisions. So thinking myself a coward or a weakling or less than for breaking down and going through the drive-through coffee. Adding that disgusting. The way I broke my addiction to Coke was really. I struggled with my addiction to Coke. Like, I could quit alcohol all the time. Crown and Coke. I could quit the Crown like any day of the week. It wasn't a problem. I really loved drinking Crown. I really loved being drunk. Or not drunk, but buzzed. I don't like being drunk, but I really love being buzzed. That just a little off the edge. I love that state. But it's not healthy and it's expensive, right? And so cutting the Crown was easy. It was cutting the Coke that was near impossible. And I flat out told friends, and I don't know if they understood this, but I'm dead serious. If you see me with a Coke, slap me in the face. And if you're my friend, like I've told a couple of friends, just punch me. Punch me in the face. I don't care if you see me with a Coke, because I never want to go back to drinking Coke. It was so addictive for me. It was horrible. And the way I got here was the key. Like, I tried so many things. There was a guy, like, and part of this is, healthy, right? Coke is just a really unhealthy thing. But there was a guy with a 5-gallon bucket, and it was on video, and he's swirling it around. It's phosphorus, right? And so he's got this phosphorus in a bucket, and he's swirling it around. He's like, yep, this is going in your Coke. He's like, and he goes on and explains where it comes from, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, it was disgusting, right? And so putting that mental image of disgust with the Coke, every time I see a Coke, no, I'm not drinking that shit. And then understanding what it does to your bones and biologically what it does, it adds more disgust and more disgust. And, finally, I can go to a grocery store. Nope. Like, I was at a restaurant. Where was I? I was at KFC, and they had this drink on the menu, something floating or something. And I was like, oh, let me try that. It looked like, oh, let me try it, right? Oh, that's Coke. Nope. So I had like 2 sips. Nope, I'm done. And it's because, to me, Coke is disgusting. And I've instilled that in my mind. So adding the disgust to bad decisions, attaching a goal to things. So if I get this, I can't get that. Do I want this more than I want this? And that's where the decision comes. Do I want to go to Bali in February, or do I want to have this candy bar here and now? Well, Bali seems a lot better than the candy bar, so let's do away with the candy bar. And that's the type of decision, binary, making it a binary choice and having a goal. So the third one is make everything a binary, right? So my goal is to get to Bali. I can't get to Bali if I have the chocolate, right? And those two go hand in hand. So, those 3 things, adding disgust, binary decision, and attaching the goal to, having that goal that's important to me in the future. Those are the 3 things that I applied to my budget specifically. I applied them everywhere else, but applying them to my budget opened up funds where I went from being broke, on the 10th or 15th of every month, get paid once a month. So I went from being broke on the 10th or 15th of every month to I was saving money. I was saving a lot of money, doing things and then putting money away. And I need to get better at the saving again, because the last few months I've really gone on vacation mode. But, it opened up my planning windows and opened up my abilities to go do things that really seemed unreachable or highly unlikely I could do. So that's what I got. That's what I did. It's a long-winded, rant, but I hope you get something out of it. And thanks for watching. Bye.